Welcome Kyle Sandy from SandySpiel.com. Sandy does the rankings, Georgia boys and girls basketball rankings. We're going to talk about the boys basketball rankings in each classification. And we want to welcome Kyle Sandy to the show on the Hardwood.
Hey,
On the hardwood.
that's it. Thank you for having me. We saw a bunch of great action with Holiday Hoops Giving, On the Radar, Showcase, all this great stuff. So we had a lot of top 10 teams playing each other, a lot of movers and shakers across the rankings, which came out on sandyspiel.com today. Will come out every Sunday. I guess we're just going to start off with Class 7A. Norcross moves all the way up to number 1. They were number 5 last week. When you beat Green Forest, when you beat Westside Macon, that's pretty good company right there. We saw Wheeler, who was preseason number 1. They did fall to Vashon out of Missouri, which was a great game. You could see that on SUVtv. Number 2, a really hot team that came out of nowhere, the Newton Rams. Newton, they don't have great size inside, but when you got guards like Ashton Hagens, when you got J.D. Note going to Jacksonville, you got all the pieces. Isaiah Miller. What do you think about Isaiah Miller? Touch on him for a second.
The very explosive, probably one of the more explosive guards in the state. Not afraid to take it inside and mix it up with the big kids. He rebounds really well, and I think he brings the energy to that team that everyone else kind of feeds off of. Especially if he gets one of those fast break opportunities and there's a wide open lane, there's showtime.
And everybody's familiar with Ashton. Ashton, great player, great guard for size. Sophomore, he's only going to get better.
Yeah.
He's only going to get better with time. But the Note kid, that's the kid that's going under the radar. And to me, he reminds me of, like we spoke earlier, the guard, Andrew Godlock, who went to college at Charleston.
Yeah.
He can score the ball, flat out score the ball. And I think at Jacksonville, he's going to surprise a lot of people.
The thing I like about him is he has a lot of patience on the floor. He's not forcing the action. The action is coming to him, and he can score it from the line, mid-range. He'll go in offensive rebound, and he's very good on the break. So I think personally Jacksonville got a steal on that one, and I agree. I think from a future college career standpoint, he can't have absolutely that type of career.
Oh yeah, definitely. If we want to move on to Class 6A real quick, this is another one we saw a new team take over. Gainesville takes over the number 1 spot. They jump ahead of Jonesboro, who lost by 8 points to Wheeler in Wheeler's opening game. That was a great game. Gainesville, if you don't know about Gainesville, a lot of juniors that have been playing for a long time, guys like Bailey Minor, who is just lethal from the corner 3. I don't know how teams leave this kid open. He's going to play at the college level somewhere. I don't know at what type of college, what level, but he can play. Then we got KJ Buffin, who is so talented. You got the Rosser twins that moved in. Kawan Hale moves in, who plays the point guard. You got people like Mike White. There's so many great pieces there.
I've seen the Rosser twins, and I've seen them develop over the years. They bring a lot of size and energy to that wing, that 4 spot. Also, with KJ, I think he is one of the more talented 2018 kids in the state of Georgia. And I think the potential he has is far-reaching. I think he's just really now just starting to tap into his potential, which makes that team a tough team for the next 2 years with all those juniors on that squad.
Versatile. He's very versatile.
Yeah.
Big guard. He can play multiple positions, defend multiple positions. And they play hard up in Gainesville.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do.
Very
Yeah, they
hard.
do. I mean, it's far enough away from Atlanta where there's not a whole lot to do. I'm sure there's something to do up there, but they come in, they bring in their hard hats and lunch pail when they show up to play.
Oh, and they travel with a crowd.
Yeah, they do.
And you can't forget about off to a slow start, kind of 1-3 record-wise, dropping to number 5. Langston Hughes, that is a team that is just loaded with great scores. You got Khalil Cuffey going to Southeast Missouri State, which I think is just a huge steal with the way he's built. He can stroke the ball from 3. You got Landers Nolly back in Georgia, who's already had a 50-point game, already put in 35 in a loss to Henry County, which we'll have to talk about pretty soon, that wild game at Hoopsgiving. And then Derek Cook going to Northeastern, a tall, lanky guard that can rebound, pass the ball. They have a lot of great options on offense and on defense.
That's a team I feel that you're not going to want to face later on in the season once they kind of get their feet underneath them. And Landers is new to the team, so they're still trying to incorporate him into the team. It was my first real look at Landers and Ollie. very impressed with his ability to shoot the ball and stretch the defense. Has a little tendency to kind of hang around that three-point line a lot, but you know what? When you can shoot it like that, why not?
Exactly.
And you're right. Derek Cook and Khalil Coffey provide a lot of toughness for that team. I think that team's going to be a team to deal with down the line.
Off to a slow start in that class, I would say, would be Alatoona.
Yeah, exactly.
But as we all know, later on in the year, they're going to pull it together and they're going to make a good run in the state.
Yeah, well-coached team. Always, there's some teams that start off hot and just kind of fade out. Alatoona is one of those teams that they'll progressively get better and better as the season goes on.
Yeah, Marcus Hood, he has that matchup, 2-3 zone, whatever you want to call it. Those guards are tenacious. Once you step over half court, they are in your pants.
Yes.
They are guarding you so hard. You got Trey Doom still there, only a junior. You feel like he's been there forever. He's a talented guy with high major looks. He's going to be asked to score the ball a little more this year. They have Mike Johnson, who's a senior now. He's picked up the slack big time. He's scoring very well. But yes, Alatoona is off to a little bit of a slow start, 0-2. But in that region, with that coaching staff, with that talent still there, they should be just fine. If we want to move on to Class 5A, Columbia is still number 1. They did lose to Collins Hill, which was a tough matchup right there. But Columbia, tell me about Columbia. They got the size. They got Kenton Eskridge in there now. They got the Cobbs in there. They got a lot of talent.
I think the biggest thing for Columbia this season is the fact that Coach McQuarrie is back. I think that's probably the biggest thing. He's one of the better coaches in the state. He's been around forever, and if he can get a team turned around and on a winning track, if anybody can do it, he can. And I think he's the biggest addition to that team. There's a kid that moved down here from Wisconsin. I can't recall his name.
Cobb.
Yeah, that's a big addition as well. Big wing, can stroke it, long, got some athleticism, got a lot of D1 mid-plus looks, and I think his ability to score the ball and rebound and get out in transition is going to help that team.
Teams to watch in that class, I would say Buford and Miller Grove. How about Miller Grove being a team to watch?
Isn't that something else? I mean, Miller Grove is, gosh, they've been the most successful program, probably one of the most successful in the country. In the state for sure.
In the country in the last 7 years.
I mean, 6
Easily.
championships in 7 years or whatever the case may be.
Hands
I
down.
mean, wow. I mean, Coach White had that program popping for a while. And, they'll always have talent there. Now they got a new coach trying to put some things together. They're going to go through some growing pains, but, they have a culture. You can't really replace a culture. Once it gets started, they feel like this is what we need to do. We need to be winning. We got to win. Anything short of winning is unacceptable in that culture.
Yeah, they opened up, lost to McEachern, and then they pick up a win against Meadow Creek this weekend. But the thing with Miller Grove, I'm cautioning people, don't fall asleep. I don't know how anybody could fall asleep on Miller Grove, but it's their guards outside of like Tay Hardy. A lot of those guys, very good guards, but they haven't seen a lot of big varsity minutes when you're playing behind Tariq Gilbert, Aiden Saunders, a lot of guys like that. So there's still a ton of talent at Miller Grove. Just don't push them to the wayside, even though they're ranked number 4. I mean, they're going to be in the thick of things when it comes to state tournament time.
Well, I tell you, losing to McEachern, I wouldn't consider that.
It's not bad.
McEachern, I was at that game, and Isaac Okoro put on a show. And he's an up-and-comer, super athletic. His jump shot has gotten a lot better. I think that game he might have had 4 or 5 threes that he hit in that game. And obviously the highlight plays that he always brings to the table. And they got a lot of good young players there, and they're going to be a team to reckon with over the years.
The next 2 years, they're going to be solid. Led by freshman point guard Sharif Cooper, who's solid. Crafty with the ball, and he's definitely getting them in sets and where they need to be. But Isaac is one of those players in 2 years who we're going to wish we had around more often.
That's right.
He does everything. He goes from shooting the basketball, facilitating, plays with energy, to even taking charges.
The motor runs high the entire game. I watched that game. He never came out, and I don't think he took a play off. He didn't take a play off. So I love his game, and as a coach, you got to love it.
Yeah, not bad. Class 4A, this is a very interesting one. I said at the beginning of the season, this one is wide open. Number 1, Sandy Creek, they take over number 1. They've held it for 2 weeks now. That's a team with a big guy named Evan Jester. I don't know if you've seen him play, about 6'7", has some Ivy League interest, 4.0 GPA, 25 on the ACT, great kid on and off the court. Hasn't been getting many Division I offers yet, though, but that's a guy that's been carrying this team. He's going to be a stretch four at the next level, has some bounce to him, can stroke it from the outside. He's averaging about 20 points and close to 10 rebounds. Sandy Creek has a lot of talent, not necessarily seniors, but below him they got guys like Jared Godfrey and KJ Wilkins is a veteran that moved in there this year. So Sandy Creek's very talented. But Upson Lee, I'm going to caution people out of Thomaston, Georgia. Ty Fagan, remember the name. He's only a junior, averaged about 20 points a game. Last year as a sophomore, 6'3" combo guard. He put on a good showing at Hoop Scenes. A fall preview, got some interest from schools like Mercer, a low major level. This is a kid that has very good grades. He tells me he has 6 A's and 1 B right now.
Okay.
So that's a kid to keep an eye on. They got a big guy inside, Trayvon Walker, who is a 6'6" defensive end with an offer to go play football at Alabama. So Upson Lee, I caution you guys to take a look at those guys. That's a pretty talented group. Sandy Creek and Upson Lee, what do you think about the rest of Class 4A?
Definitely a team I need to see. I've heard about the Upson Lee team, hadn't seen them, so I'm looking forward to seeing them sometime during the season. With Evan Kane in one of my allmetrohoops.com camps, and I saw him over the last couple of years. Surprised he's not getting the looks with those type of grades, because the kid can play. He's got a good size for a wing. It hurt Sandy Creek to lose Elias Harden, who's now over at Pebblebrook. But I think it's probably good for him as a player. It'll help him grow as a player. As far as the rest of Class 4A, I mean, Henry County, wow. I mean, Javon Green put on a show. That was a show I hadn't seen since the Lewis Williams days, a double nickels, you know what I mean? So I was really impressed with the fact that he maintained that level throughout the game. Everybody knew he was taking the shots and it didn't matter. He was still getting them.
That was a good performance. Overtime as well.
Overtime. Every bucket counted.
Needed it.
Those are the ones that you love, not the 55-point games and the team wins by 25-30. This is a game where every bucket counted, and he delivered the goods. And so I was really happy for him. George Mason is getting a good one, going to George Mason. And I think, again, one of those Georgia kids that was under the radar, didn't have a whole lot of fanfare around him. But at the end of the day, he's going to deliver some goods up there at George Mason.
Yeah, that Henry County game, very impressive, down 47-31, so down 16 points at the half to Langston Hughes. Come back and win it in overtime, 92-89. Javon Green hits 7 threes, pours in 57 points, a hoops giving event record. And he did that. He had to carry the load. Damian Rosser was out. He's been hurt. He hopes to come back in a couple of weeks. Got hurt in a scrimmage against Eagles Landing, a big physical downhill guard that's going to New Orleans. So him being out, and we saw Javon Green, he can carry the load. Not bad.
Yeah, can't forget to mention the fact that it was against Langston Hughes. It was against a good team, against 3 Division I guards.
Exactly. Very impressive. If we want to slide over to Class 3A, this is one where we got a new number 1, actually. I had to drop Pace to number 2. Pace started off the season 2-8 last year. They do play a big national schedule, but Wendell Carter, he's the main draw. He's a big guy going to Duke. He's a superstar. And then Isaiah Kelly, another talented 6'7", 6'8" forward there. But the guard play sometimes comes in question. They were very solid at times last year, but when you're playing some of these more athletic and high major type guards, they could sometimes get exposed. They lost to Jameson out of Alabama by 17 points. And Westside, I had them ranked number 1. They lost to Norcross, but they had a lead in the second half. That was a very strong showing. Kevon Moore did not play that great. We saw Kentravius Jones.
Playing well.
6'11", 285 pounds of them, just old school post, just bullying people out of the way, getting buckets. Westside, when you got, they got a lot of pieces there. Simone Reed had a great game, stroking the 3 ball. And if they theoretically, if they ever played Pace, if you got a big guy like Jones, he could somewhat, not completely take Wendell out of the game, but he can negate him a little bit and try and neutralize him to some point, I would say.
Yeah, I think he will contain Wendell, not to the point where he'll stop him, but enough for to lead to easy buckets for the rest of the guys. So that'll be a good game. One of the teams that we need to watch in that class would be Liberty County. Can't go wrong with Liberty County, and no one has seen Morgan County yet.
Well, Morgan County's got a guard I saw this summer. I can't recall his name. He's one of the better shooters in the state from what I could see. So they're definitely tough. Always have been over the last 4 or 5 years. Back when Tookie Brown was running things down there in Morgan County. I think Pace, obviously, with Wendell, big time player. Going to Duke, he brings so much to the table. The focus is always going to be on him. And I think you're right. They struggle sometimes with teams because the guard play has never been where it needs to be relative to the ability that Wendell brings to the table. And when you're big, you need guards to deliver you the ball and put you in good situations. Sometimes he has a tendency of doing a little too much, but I can't blame him because he has to for that team. Definitely one of my more favorite players across the country that I've seen. So I'm looking forward to seeing them. I think Isaiah Kelly, this might be a breakout year for him. Promising player, been promising since middle school, but I think this year might be the year for him to really break out.
Yeah, and that guard you were talking about for Morgan County, that might have been Alec Woodard.
Exactly who it is.
Yeah, had set the school record, hit about 10 threes in a game for Morgan County last year as a freshman, only a sophomore this year. He's got some good size to him, can stroke it. He's a very talented guard there. And we talked about Liberty County. They still got Will Richardson and Davion Mitchell. That's usually as much as you need. But
Yeah.
we saw what happened when they played Newton, when they were missing that third guy, Richard LeCount, 5-star Georgia football recruit that's not going to be able to play this year. That's 20 points and 5 rebounds that you're missing. That's a guy that scored about 18 points in the state championship game.
And toughness.
Yeah, and just a freak athlete, does so much for them. And when you're playing like Westside and Pace and these good, top-heavy teams in Class 3, you need every single star player you can get. And
Right.
without him, that does hurt a little bit. They're
Right.
still a talented team, but that does hurt a little
It
bit.
does. And I hate to go back, but just to talk real briefly about Contravius, who over the years has really gotten his body together. He's going to Xavier next year, which I think is a great pickup for him. Very similar to Stan Wood that played at Xavier the last few years, who's now probably playing overseas somewhere. And I think he's starting to feel like, okay, I belong on the floor with these guys. He was like a bull in the China shop. He was so hard to stop inside on Saturday because of his size and his willingness to absorb contact and finish. So I think with the Simone kid who shot the ball really well, I think that kid has some low major Division I potential. When you shoot it like that, he's got good speed, good toughness, and he had a very good game on Saturday. So probably gonna hear a lot more from that kid.
Yeah, and then Trey Foster, who's a really important piece for them. He was super quiet against Norcross. He didn't really do much. So when you get him going, and Simone, and Caban, and Contravius, that is a tough team. If we want to slide over to Class 2A, South Atlanta, #1 team in the state. That is a team that's always well coached. They always have athletes jump out of the gym, length, size, great guard play. But I want to focus on Thomasville. Thomasville was 28-2 last year. Everything was rolling. I saw their only regular season loss when I went down to Seminole County, saw Jordan Harris hang about 28, 30 points on them and beat them in a great close game.
Right.
So then everyone wanted to see in Class 2A, Pace Academy, you got Wendell Carter versus Thomasville, who we have Reggie Perry, who's about 6'9", just committed to Arkansas.
Super talented.
Right there. So that was a big game. And then what happens? Pace blows them out by about 30 points. Thomasville kind of laid over after they hit a couple threes to open the third quarter. They got blown out. And then we open up the season now. Thomasville still ranked #5 in the state, but they're 0-3. Tift County beat them by about 30 points, which is a smaller team. Tough. Talk about toughness. Tift County's always tough.
Always tough.
TJ Horn, that's a senior, about 6'5", 6'6", tore his ACL last year, coming back super strong already this year. Just had 40 points career high in the last game. But Thomasville, when you got Reggie Perry and then Titus Wright, another big guy, about 6'10", you have the two biggest guys in the classification possibly with high major, talent right there. But it hasn't worked out. The guard play has really struggled from what I'm hearing.
That's
down there.
always been the problem with them. And I actually talked to Reggie's dad a few weeks ago, and that was the problem last year when they played against Pace. Reggie, again, going back to Wendell now at Pace, it's a similar situation. You don't have guard play. We're going to touch on this later on in the segment, but when you don't have guard play, you don't have anything. I mean, you can't win without guard play. I don't care how good a big is. You don't have guards, then you can neutralize that big. And that's what happens with Reggie Perry down in Thomasville. He needs better guards around him.
Yeah, that hurt. Jordan Willis was a guy that graduated last year. He was great for Thomasville. He's not, he wasn't a Division I guy, but that was a guy that probably led the team in scoring about 14, 15 points. Tough-nosed guy. He did everything for him. He could handle the ball, facing pressure and everything. He could get the ball to Reggie, get the ball to Titus when he needed to. And now with him gone, and they had a pretty strong senior class that did graduate, a lot of guards, so
Right.
a lot of guys that are now kind of inexperienced, wet behind the ears, and that's really hurt them so far this season.
I agree.
How about Class A private? Green Forest. They may be the second best team in the state right now behind Norcross.
Yeah, that's scary to think. They beat Westlake, they lose to Norcross, but their leading scorer from last year, Justin Forrest, is out for, he'll be coming back December, January, so he's been out with a foot injury. He was their leading scorer last year, and Green Forest is still playing with these
Kyle,
boys
and their
well.
floor general. I mean, when you're
Exactly.
missing your floor general,
Yes.
he's the guy. He
Yes.
handles the ball. He handles pressure. He distributes the ball. He scores the ball. He's not there,
Yeah.
and they're still making it happen. I was impressed. They got some new kids over there that I was impressed with how they played and how they handled that situation over there at Hoopsgiving, man, because the energy, the crowd, I mean, you put kids in that environment, sometimes they don't react well. They reacted well.
It never hurts to have a 7-footer that blocks shots and come off the bench with a 6'10" bruiser. That never hurts.
They have pieces.
Yeah.
How about that? They have pieces for sure.
Yeah.
I think Salim is probably, Muhammad is probably one of the most underrated players in the state, and he has developed the most over the years, and he's a real bruiser down there, and I think he's going to have a good future.
He moves bodies. When he gets in there, he's moving bodies. He's going after every rebound he can get his hands on. He's fighting you for 50-50 balls. And to have that luxury of having him come off the bench, I mean, what coach wouldn't want that?
Yeah, and with Forrest out, you have to have guards that step up. Jandon Duggan stepped up. Michael Evans stepped up. They got the transfer from Doherty, David Quimby.
I like him.
Yeah.
That's that 55 kid. He's got a chance to be he's got a scorer's mentality.
Yes, he does.
And he has a chance to be a big-time scorer. And that addition has definitely helped. I mean, when Forrest comes back, they're battling for the #1 spot. No question about that.
I agree. And then let's talk about St. Francis. Been moving up the polls. That's been Green Forest nemesis, always meeting in the state championship. St. Francis super young this year, but what about Dwan Odom?
Wow, I watched his first game. I think Dwan had 24, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, somewhere around there. The kid plays with so much energy. He's unselfish. He's gotten better as a passer. He's gotten better as a shooter. When he was younger, they played him as small forward and power forward. Now he's migrating out to the point guard spot, and he's really doing a really good job making that transition. His future is really bright. I mean, I just love his approach to the game. Love his approach to the game.
Drew was always going to have them prepared. Great
Yeah.
coach, maximum effort. I really want to see them against Green Forest this year again.
Well, one thing they lack that Green Forest has too much of
Yes.
is size. They got too much, and St. Francis doesn't have enough.
I don't think anybody in the state has enough size for Green Forest.
Not at all. Not at all. Class A public, not much has really gone on. A lot of those small schools, a lot of kids play football. Not much going on, but a big game you want to circle for this week coming up. I believe it's on a Tuesday. Crawford County hosts Upson Lee. That's a very interesting game. That's two schools pretty close by, rivals, but they haven't really played in a couple years. So that's going to be some, I wouldn't say bad blood. A lot of those guys played together on the Middle Georgia Supersonics, a travel team, which
Okay.
the 16U team, they won the national championship, whichever you want to call it, USSAA, however you want to say
US
that one.
AAA?
Yeah, that's it. So that was a team that was powered by Ty Fagan and the big guy Walker inside. So they do play with some of these Crawford County kids. Elsewhere in Class A public, Quitman County has a couple good guards. They score a lot. That's a team that's moving up to number 5. We'll see how they play throughout the rest of the season. They haven't played top-notch competition just yet. They just lost their first game by 1 point to Eufaula out of Alabama. But then at the bottom of the poll, Lincoln County, that's a team. They had a great season last year, broke some records. Big guy, he's a senior, 6'7", 6'8". Ahmad Rand, he was my Class A Public Player of the Year. He averaged about 15 points, 13 rebounds, about 8 blocks a game.
Pretty athletic kid.
Yeah, he's nowhere near a finished product.
No, he's not.
Not at all. But if he puts his heart into it and puts all the pieces together and gets his head straight and really wants to do something with it, he's going to be a steal for a junior college or a Division II, Division III, something like that. Because he just has God's gift ability of just blocking shots. He's got springs that he can jump out of the building. That's a very talented kid. If he wants to put it together, I mean, the sky's the limit. He could be a really good player for a program somewhere.
Yeah, I agreed. Well, Kyle, I want to thank you for showing up on the Hardwood. Before we let you go, tell the people where they can find you on social media.
Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at KyleSandy355. That's just going to be all hoops talk throughout the season, GHSA. SandySpiel.com, that will be SandySspiel.com. I'll have game stories, nightly recaps where I try and get about 50 games across the state with top performers. So everything high school hoops in the state of Georgia, I try my best to have you covered. So rankings come out every Sunday. For women's basketball, that comes out on Mondays. So I try and cover all my bases. We'll see what happens.
If you want to know what's going on with high school basketball across the state, not just the city of Atlanta, follow Kyle Sandy. Thank you very much, Kyle.
Thank you for having me.